Hello everyone and welcome back to DMG. A couple days ago I was looking through one of my e-waste spots that in the past has yielded some MacBooks that I can pull parts from and refurbish or resell or whatever. I wasn't finding a lot in the bin, not a great yield that day. But then I looked over to the side and I could not believe my eyes because in a little cardboard box was not one but two Canon XL1 camcorders, and a ton of accessories. So of course, I could not resist the opportunity to bring one of these home, because I have been wanting an XL1 for quite a long time, and to have not just one, but two of them, I still can't believe that this actually happened. So today we're going to look at these two absolutely wonderful Canon XL1 cameras. They're configured a little bit differently, and one is a newer model. So I'll take you through what it's like to shoot on, what the UI is like, and of course, most importantly, what the hardware is like. So it's worth mentioning first that there are two cameras here, and they are absolutely not the same configuration-wise, but camera-wise, they're pretty similar. So this one is the XL1S. It is an updated version released in like 2001, and this is the original Canon XL1 from '97. Both of them have the same exact sensors in the same body, but this just has a lot more. The XL1S just has a lot more options in the menu, a lot more like ease of use features. But first, let's look at the regular XL1, because this one is configured pretty stock. So this is what it would have been like if you bought one new and without any accessories. Well, these are accessories. This is the system isolator from Lightwave Systems, and this separates the body of the camera that has the lens zoom motors and the tape deck, the VTR, separates that from the microphone so you don't get extra vibrations onto your mic. But otherwise, this is completely stock. This is exactly as it would have shipped. So it has a Canon stereo microphone that actually sounds excellent, a small little LCD viewfinder on the front, some IR receivers and the tally light, and on the back, oh, well, I guess this is another, like, added later thing, is a shoulder pad. So you can, it braces against the front of your shoulder, hold it like this, and it takes a whole lot of weight off of your palm, because this is about 4.5 pounds in this configuration. And the lens here, it's the stock one. From the factory, it would have had a lens hood. Those were more expensive than the lenses themselves, so I did not buy one. But this is it's a 5.5 to 88 millimeter lens with motor-driven zoom and autofocus. This is TTL autofocus, not infrared, so it's a lot more accurate than a lot of other 90s cameras and a lot of preceding video cameras, so that's nice. It has excellent optical image stabilization and a ton of options that you can change on the lens itself. So you can set, auto manual focus, you can lock it to a certain focus or zoom distance, and of course turn that stabilizer on or off. When it comes to the camera's body, this little LCD screen shows your battery level, like recording time on tape, and this is a VU meter for your levels. It lights up when you press this little light. Under here are more secret buttons. These are mainly for menus, setting presets, that sort of thing. But it actually has physical controls on the body itself for white balance and gain, as well as AE, so your exposure. And then over here are all of your options for audio. So there's a comprehensive suite of knobs for setting your recording levels and balance for all three of this camera's audio inputs. So it has one audio input up here, two unbalanced jacks, two more out the back, and then the one that the microphone is plugged into. And this microphone actually, it has separate power from the camera, so it has to receive power. So I really like that it's all consolidated into one plug that just so neatly plugs into this mic port. You've got a headphone out too back here, and that's controlled with its own knob. On the top, you have even more secret controls hidden behind panels. So these are all your VTR controls for the tape recorder. And then up here are a couple basic controls for if you're holding it by the handle up top, which I don't recommend doing these days because all the rubber on the body has started to break down and turn into disgusting goo again. But if you're holding it up by the top, you've got zoom, wide telephoto, video start and stop, and photo. Oh yeah, everything is mounted to the body by these rails. And on this little viewfinder, you can take the lens off and I suppose swap it out for a different one. And you can also adjust the focus and zoom of the little lens as well to compensate for how close or far your eye is from the viewfinder. On this side, you just get your battery, your tape deck, your VTR, and like the output ports. So there's an extra remote connection, there's a connection for external flash, and then there's your FireWire port. Recording, there's your video button. Variable speed, like zoom rocker. So it's analog. It's not just on or off. Depending on how hard you're pressing it, it'll zoom at a different speed. So that's a really, really amazing feature. The XL1 is not the only nor the first video camera to do this, but I've never owned a camera with powered zoom all in the lens at a variable speed. That is just like crazy nice. And then it can take photos, but they're really horrible photos. It has no flash storage, so photos are just stored as video stills on tape. It records a still image for 6 seconds, and that's your photo. And often they look worse than if you just take a screenshot of the video that's playing. Okay, now let's talk about this other one, this XL1S. And I'm not just exaggerating and grunting and groaning and moaning. This is actually about it's like 8.5 pounds, so it's really getting up there in weight. And the two biggest things that make it, well, bigger, is the 20 times lens and this giant viewfinder. So first of all, let's talk about this lens. Let's take this guy off. So this is a newer lens, and this is actually an incredibly nice lens. This is a Canon L series lens. That's their absolute highest end series. Uses fluorite elements, and it is a 5.4 to 108 millimeter lens. Metal body, so that's really where its weight comes from. Once again, you get those like focus adjustment and focus link lock settings. You get your stabilizer on and off here. You also get like manual shutter speed kind of settings on the lens itself. So this lens adds an extra like 1.5 pounds. And then the other super, super heavy part is this viewfinder. So it came stock, the XL1 came stock with a color LCD viewfinder, but this is a black and white CRT viewfinder. And you're probably thinking, well, that's a downgrade. It's actually not. Because if you've ever used an LCD screen from before like 2008, you know how like unusable they are. So on a super high-end camera like the XL1, if you're trying to judge focal length, the LCD just is not fine enough. Like it doesn't have good enough of a resolution. I think it's like 188,000 pixels total. But the CRT viewfinder, monochrome CRTs don't have a resolution. Like the only limitation is how fast the beam could scan back and forth, the electron beam. So it's a whole lot sharper, it's a whole lot clearer, it's a whole lot brighter, and it sucks down power. So this is manufactured by Ikegami, and Canon just put their logo on the front. They didn't do anything else to this viewfinder. It's still an Ikegami broadcast viewfinder, so it doesn't have the the IR receivers for the remote, and it also doesn't even have the pins to plug in to the Canon XL1's viewfinder port. So Canon devised this jabroni device that goes in between. Let me take this out so you can see it. Yeah, Canon devised this contraption that plugs into the viewfinder port, and then you plug the high-end Ikegami broadcast viewfinder with this different pinout into the adapter, and instead of putting the battery straight in the camera body, you put the battery in the adapter. And I have a feeling this is because this big CRT draws more power or requires a different voltage than the viewfinder pins supply, so they need to connect it straight to the battery so it doesn't cook some circuitry elsewhere. And the system isolators used on the XL1 shift the viewfinder forward a little too much, and that would have made the weight of the CRT too far forward, and it would have been absolutely unbearable to hold this camera by the top. So instead I used this universal mini mount, and it's just a little shock mount for the microphone that once again isolates it from lens noise and from the DV deck, and keeps things nice and smooth and quiet. You've got the same button layouts on the sides. I've installed an XLR in and out module here, so it's a shoulder pad with mounts for extra things if you want to mount some things behind your shoulder, and XLR ins and outs for plugging microphones in. Same settings here. Under here are a couple new ones. So the XL1S has custom keys that you can assign to be whatever you want, aka from a menu of 7 options. So I think one of them adjusts the zebra level, and one of them switches on and off an external display plugged into the video output. I think that's what I have them configured as. You have more white balance settings. There are now 3 memory presets for white balance instead of just 1 on the XL1. Let's see, what else? Oh, this iris wheel is now, you can now use it to scroll through menus. And that's the only actual difference between the XL1 and the XL1S. Well, what do they look like? That's a great question. You're looking through the Canon XL1 right now. Let me use that remote to zoom it in a little more. So my tripod actually is not good enough to hold this camera, and that's why I don't even dare try and put the XL1S up there, because it would just fall the hell down immediately, and I would be very sad. Sorry, because it only has a tiny viewfinder, I am monitoring through a tiny TV that I have set up here, and I can show that to you in a second. It's a little 4x3 CRT. But yes, that's what the XL1 looks like. It's a little soft even for SD. You'll notice color-wise it looks better than my Sony Handycam that I usually shoot my face on, but resolution-wise it's less sharp. That's because it uses 3 CCDs, one for red, blue, and green, separately, so that's better color, but each one is only 1/4 of a megapixel, and that's low even for standard definition. That is below the 720 by 480 resolution of mini DV. So unfortunately the sensors kind of let this camera down, and I do wish that the sensors had been improved on the XL1S, but still, so this 16 times lens can zoom in a disturbing amount, and of course all of that is controllable with a remote control because of magic. So yeah, all of the zoom motors are in the lens, and they can be therefore controlled from anywhere. They just need a signal. So this remote does a whole lot of things. It's got a jog dial and shuttle wheel for editing your mini DV tapes on the camera itself. And standard buttons for going through menus and stuff. It's got VTR controls, so your play, stop, rewind, that stuff. And you can change what's shown on the screen. You know, your OSD, you could turn that on and off, and it's funny, I've never noticed this before. It's actually, it messes with my CRT when I do that. You can take photos with the remote, you can start and stop recording from it, so it's really cool little guy. Let's plug in our XL1S into my magical video recording device, my Sony DV Direct, so that we can get a sense of what it's like to shoot on. So because this is a video camera and not a photo camera, the on-screen display is actually a whole lot smoother. So the video that you see on the screen is in real time. It's not laggy, it's not choppy at all. So you get perfectly smooth video from that. It tells you, you know, your white balance, your exposure shift, and down here I have it switched on so it'll show my custom keys. There's your zoom. So there's like super slow zoom. You can barely press it down and you can barely even tell that it's zooming, or you can jam it all the way down and it will zoom at an alarming rate. There is my monitor for my other Canon XL1, the one that I'm recording on. So I think you're beginning to see that even though the resolution on these is not excellent, their video still looks fantastic. So the XL1 syncs very nicely with CRTs, I've noticed that. And it's actually a feature that Canon advertised, that they sync with the refresh rates of CRTs when you're filming them. So that ability to just really smoothly show a tube TV is amazing, because I don't have any other cameras that do that, or do it quite as well. There's my battery pack for this TV. It's a realistic Portavision. It just takes 15-volt DC input, and it's a pretty good looking little 5-ish inch color tube. We'll find something inane to zoom in upon. So in your menus, I actually don't know what color this menu is because I'm using the black and white viewfinder, but it actually has a 16:9 mode, which just crops down. You can set how intense your zebra is. You can set your zoom grip to be like at a fixed speed, but I personally don't know why you would do that. The zoom handle is not analog, it's just on or off, so you do have to set that at a set speed. So you can set custom color presets in here, and those are things that you can switch between if you so desire, using the custom preset key under the magic red door here. It can do 16-bit audio. That's where you change your audio options. This can do, sorry, this is getting uncomfortable to hold. It can do 16-bit audio, but then you only get from one input, and it's mono. So it's a bandwidth limitation there. Mini DV doesn't have enough bandwidth to hold all those channels in 16-bit. Oh yeah, it saves your date and time, so you can see down there it said I was in Chicago. So mainly to compensate for the horrible colors on the original electronic viewfinder, it has an option where you can increase the saturation. Not too much else interesting here. Yeah, just date and time, tally lamp, etc. So yeah, that's the XL1's user interface. Well, I've just taken this big guy, the one with the 20 times zoom lens and the monochrome viewfinder, out to a local park to see if I could find any critters to film, because I wanted some moving targets to be able to follow to test the stabilization at range in particular, in addition to just colors and all that. Saw some geese, saw some swallows, saw a great blue heron in the middle of Atlanta, which I really was not expecting. But yes, captured the footage that you just saw and that you're seeing played right here. And it was a pleasure to shoot with. I did swap out for this shoulder mount because the XLR mic shoulder mount is just really uncomfortable and it doesn't provide the same level of like bracing against your body as this one does. So with the 8-pound camera, you definitely do want this shoulder mount because it is so much more stable, especially when you're at 20 times zoom on the lens. But this camera held up exceptionally well. When I went to pull the footage off of it, I found that neither of the FireWire ports on either of my XL1 cameras work. So I would assume that's why these ended up in the e-waste in the first place, because the FireWire ports have been used so much and abused so much that they are just past the point of no return and just absolutely ruined. So yeah, the FireWire ports are under there, and I had a feeling it was a hardware failure because I plug them into the camera and the like FireWire connected message would pop up and then disappear and then pop up and disappear repeatedly on the camera while the computer said there was no FireWire device connected. So I took a flashlight, looked in the FireWire ports, and sure enough, the pins are spread out like this inside the port. So I might try and fix that, but for now I've just been loading the tapes into my Sony Handycam and just playing them back into the computer that way because that FireWire port does work. I haven't had any hardware issues with these cameras otherwise, other than the disgusting sticky rubber all over them that's like getting on my hands every time I use them. I will have to find some solution to that. But I really love shooting on the XL1, and I've probably used like a third of its capabilities. Like, I haven't even touched the buttons here. I don't know what those do. So the second day, yesterday, that I took it out, it started raining. So you get to see the image stabilization as I am running, holding the camera from the top handle. And you can see that stabilization working when rain hits the lens. and it looks like the raindrops on the lens are moving because the image stabilization is compensating for the fact that I am running holding the camera like this. Oh, I did discover, this is not like a brand new incredible discovery or anything. Like, other people have definitely found this out. But here, there is a notch here so that when you're holding it from the top, you can put your finger, your pointer finger, in this notch to better support it. Now, it's still uncomfortable because, once again, this camera is like 8 pounds and the majority of the weight is towards the front. So holding it from the top is not comfortable with the monochrome CRT viewfinder and the big lens. But the grip there does improve things a pretty good bit. So the stabilization isn't, it's not like perfect. You can't run while holding the camera and expect a perfectly steady shot, but you can't expect that from any camera unless you have like a Steadicam or a gimbal or something. But that's where I'm going to wrap this up. I am absolutely elated to have found not one but two completely working, except for the Firewire port, XL1 cameras with all of these accessories, and only had to buy the 2 lenses, which I think cost me like $50 overall. Oh yeah, these 2 lenses use Canon's XL mount, which was only used on like 4 cameras. The XL1, the XL1S, the XL2, and like the XL1 HD or something. And yeah, so these lenses are absolutely insane for the price because their aperture is so tiny. The actual aperture of these cameras is it's like 11 millimeters because the CCDs are so small. So that means as soon as CCD tech advanced, these lenses became completely useless because they can't focus light onto a big enough area to be usable on any other camera that preceded the XL1. So I guess that's another benefit of the XL1. You get these incredible lenses, like, for example, a Canon L series lens that was like $2,000 at launch for $25 on eBay. But that's where I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much. I hope this was interesting. I hope you liked my test footage from the XL1. But yeah, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time.